Okay.
Okay, I accept. Okay, thank you, Professor Penaza. First of all, let's try to share my screen. Okay.
Oh,
Does it work?
okay, I think.
Do you
Yeah.
see it? Okay, I can start the presentation. So. Okay. And also the presentation works, right? Okay, fantastic. So good afternoon, everyone, and thanks to be here. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Penaza and Professor Casonato that he's not here, but still I have to thank him for this invitation and this opportunity to be here with you to give you this seminar. Today we will deepen some of the topics that have already been addressed in the last two lectures on AI, constitutional law, and fundamental rights. And in particular, we will look into what the internet platforms, the so-called over-the-top, do, their activities, and their effects on our economic and political system. Obviously, comments and questions are more than welcomed, and feel free to interrupt me in any moment. Also, speaking like, let's say, digitally raise your hands, because I think that while the presentation is working, I cannot see the comments. And that being said, let's start. Okay, I'd like to start the presentation.
Hello.
Hello, yeah, sure.
Can I ask Doctor, can I restart recording as well? Because I think this is for Dr. Samone.
Yeah, I'm already, the recording is already started. You want to start to record?
Yes, because the previous one we lost already, so I just
okay,
want to
great. Yeah, because the recording lasts 15 days on Zoom, so you feel free to record.
Because I think it's no problem. Permission.
Okay.
So sure. I don't know how to do, but I'm trying to record, but it's asking.
There's the command.
We probably have to authorize you, all of us.
Yes, I think.
Yeah, but at least, in any case, starting from today, we are going to save. Download the recording, so the limitation of the 15 days will not be a problem yet. So it's not, you cannot record it, so we are going to solve this problem if you are not able to do this. Okay, Luca.
Okay, I'd like to start this presentation with a quote because it's a good resume of the first topic we will address as the radical transformation of markets and consumers due to big data and AI. As you know, in general terms, internet has widely changed our economy, and nowadays this is actually common sense. Like try to think, expression like sharing economy or gig economy are now in the daily language of normal people, and this is a sign of how radically market change and economy change for internet. And this also the quotation represent well also which are the actors of this transformation. In fact, the quotation comes from Hal Varian, that maybe you already know him, is the former university professor of the famous College of Berkeley and of California University. And since 2002, he works at Google as a chief economist. He's an economist. And he, let's say, is the man behind the Google economic strategy and Google market strategy in the last 20 years. And in this quotation of 2013, he indicates the main steps of this new form of market, let's say. In fact, platforms permit data collection of the consumers, that those data can be analyzed also with AI instruments, let's say mostly with AI instruments and first of all deep learning. And this permits to personalize and customize the content, personalize ads and personalize products that are digital products and also physical products that are sold online. At the end, this kind of, as we will see, this accumulation of data permits to realize also experimentation, with which we can measure and improve this kind of market strategy. By the way, we have to say that this declaration of Hal Varian is probably arrived a bit late, In fact, the potential of data collection for market had been discovered by Google at least 10 years earlier. In fact, we have, let's say, a date of birth of customization and personalization of content, let's say of targeting, what we now call targeting. This date is the 22nd of April of 2001. And that day, people at Google found out a strange fact. Looking at what people in the US had looked in the search engine that day, they noticed that each hour there was a sudden increase of a question. What's Carol Brady maiden name? Carol Brady, probably nobody here knows her. She was kind of a famous actor because she had a role, it was the mother of the family, in the famous sitcom of the 70s in the US called The Brady Bunch. But that sudden interest for that name before marrying apparently did not make any sense. Till Google engineers, Google workers discovered that was Carol Brady maiden name had been a question of that day episode of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the popular TV quiz. The increase of the researchers in the search engine each hour corresponded to the broadcasting of the TV program in each of the 9 US time zones. And these open a whole new world. User research on the search engine could be foreseen. That was the main point. Not only this will soon be clear, not only about the topics of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire questions, but also, for example, it will soon be clear that people look for public transport timetable, mostly in the morning when they have to go to the school or to the office. That they look for food, mostly before lunch and dinner. That children use internet mostly after school, so in the first hours of the afternoon, and so on. And it will be clear that this kind of provisions can be maybe limitless, improved, refined towards data analytics, toward data collection and data analytics, and that they could be transformed in money. In fact, it was possible to put ads next to the result of this Google research that we now call trending topic, if we think of it. And doing so, they could increase exponentially the number of people that they expose to an ad. And so also the effectiveness of the ad. This today can sound obvious, probably it sounds obvious, but in 2001, it was an incredible revolution that nobody had thought before. So much that Sergey Brin, that is one of Google founder, together with Larry Page, described it like trying an electronic microscope for the first time, like seeing things that before you couldn't see. And it was also the moment in which Google started making, let's say, real money, started having the exponential revenue that it has nowadays, and that permitted it to become one of the maybe best companies in the world. But trending topics were not the only foreseeable thing. Google found out that data collection and data analytics not permit only to know which topic, which things are most searched in a determined time of the day, but also found out that with data collection and data analytics, it's possible to profile users, clustering them in different categories, and expose people to even more effective ads, because you can personalize the ads on the basis of the information collected on them. At the time, in those years, we were speaking about the first years of the 2000s, Google registered many patents to protect this technology on profiling and data collection. To be clear, in case somebody doesn't know, in simple terms, a patent is a legal instrument that guarantees to the creator of an innovation its exclusive usage for a determined period of time. and so also the related economic advantage. The Italian word that probably everybody knows is brevetto. As I was saying, in those years, the first year of 2000s, Google registered many patents. I consider one of them particularly meaningful, generating user information for use in target advertising, because it made immediately clear one of the more discussed topics of targeting of internet users also nowadays, which is the fact that data collection does not limit itself to information that the user discloses voluntarily. This information is just the raw material and are analyzed also with AI and particular machine learning to infer new information on the user, which he or she has never disclosed, and that permit to make, obviously, even more effective and accurate profiling. And I think it's significant to notice that already in 2003, even thinking of what would have been the future, already in 2003, Google assumed that people would not disclose voluntarily personal information. This is in the last part of the quote that I put here. And so studied strategies to obtain it anyway. This patent is just one of those numerous strategies. By the way, the quote that I put is taken from the introduction of the patent. The patent is full on internet, and I leave the link on the slide. So you have a strong IT background, unlike me. So if you are interested, you can also look at the technology that they use for the first real profiling at the time. That's good. So, like what, now we have briefly described this revolution in marketing and in market strategies, and also probably in the whole economic system. And let's try to analyze, to give a bit of context, analyze what had been the main reason that make this possible. There are technological reasons and also, let's say, cultural and political reasons. Two technological reasons are quite obvious, and you probably, many of you know this surely better than me, and are the increase in computational power of computer and machines that permit the storage and the analysis of limitless amount of data, let's say, and the advances in machine learning and in data science. And on the other hand, the obvious increasing of data. Data is new oil, let's say. There was a continuous accumulation of data generated by users that increased in the second decade of 2000 with the advent of Internet 2.0, especially of social network, where users started to disseminate unprecedented amount of personal data that is nowadays increasing with IoT and the sensors of Internet of Things using data collection, and that will probably increase in the future with new technological innovation that we still don't know. Leaving on aside these kind of technical aspects that made possible this revolution, we have also to underline that they are not the only reason. We had also a cultural reason, maybe an obvious one and a really justified one, that was the enthusiasm toward these new technologies. Google had the ability to change our life better in countless ways. And when this kind of technology arrived, when Internet 2.0 arrived, let's say that data collection, the problem of data collection in private hands was not so discussed. Surely it was not as mainstream as today is. And the state of exception, let's say, following 9/11. In fact, the years following 9/11, that are the years when the system developed, were the years of the so-called war on terrorism that generated a culture of surveillance, let's say. Data collection was widely practiced by security agencies, public security agencies, and were also accepted with easily accepted by the public opinion, especially in the United States. And this climate and the special laws that in the United States mostly were approved about data collection and privacy related things permitted also to private companies like internet platforms to collect a great amount of data. Let's say also because, as we would have found out that 10 years later with Edward Snowden disclosure revelations, those private companies in those years often disclose and share personal data with governmental agencies. Let's look now at what this technology innovation made possible. So, which are the consequences of the technological evolutions that derived for this new kind of market of marketing and from targeting. Let's say that people, life, and experience have become, in a certain sense, the raw material of this new economic system, because people, life, and experience, the more and more increasing part of people, life, and experience that we decide to share online are converted in data, analyzed in data, and used to improve for further profiling and data accumulation and targeting and this form of market. And this is totally consistent with the 4 free character of internet platform and of the social network and of this kind of online services. Let's say that is a famous quotation: if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. Let's look now at some of the distortions, some of the maybe worst results of this new economic system, making it clear that not all the results of this economic system, of this new kind of market, are bad or are distorted. Actually, there are a lot of great innovation made possible only by massive data collection by internet platforms, and we will see a couple of them later. By the way, maybe this is kind of a famous story, so many of you probably already know it. By the way, it is a 2012 American event where a father of a family with a 16-year-old daughter started to receive massive ads of maternity product and of toys for babies, milk, powder milk, this kind of products, and he wasn't able to understand why. Till her daughter, her 16-year-old daughter, confessed him that she was pregnant, and she had been looking for information on internet in the 2 months before. Other results may be less funnier and more worrying. Deal with what we call in general terms algorithmic bias, and that has already been examined by Professor Casonato and Penasa. And let's speak about price customization. Algorithms and platforms and profiling permit to custom also the price, not only the ads of a digital product. This is becoming quite common, and Uber and other lift sharing and car sharing company in the US use it widely. And it has been found out that the people that receive the higher price by the app for the lift are people that don't live in the richest neighborhood of the country, of a city, as somebody maybe expected, because there should be the people that are that accept to spend more for a service, but is on the opposite way are the people that live in the poorest neighborhood of a city. Why? Because in the poorest neighborhood of the city, less people own cars. There are few public transport, and worse than the public transport that are at disposition in the richer part of the city. And so people are obliged to accept and to use Uber or other car sharing companies, and to accept the condition and the price. And it happened that people living in those neighborhoods in many US cities are almost all minority groups members. And so at the end, we have an algorithm that, in a way that maybe can seem economically logical, discriminate by race the clients of an app. And we will have to decide in the future if these kind of outcomes that maybe from the perspective of the seller, of the company, of the platform, are convenient, are also socially acceptable. Other example is related with insurance and with the premium calculation. You know that when you sign an insurance contract, think of the car contract, you pay a sum of money, an amount of money, and if you will have problems, those insurance companies will cover you, will pay your damage on things you are you would have to pay without the insurance at your place. So some life insurances in the US right now, but maybe also some healthcare insurance, because I remember that not all the countries have public healthcare system, started to offer the possibility to their clients to wear a bracelet that keep monitoring all day, all night long, your lifestyle and your life condition. And this in exchange of a discount on the premium calculation right now. And those data will be used to develop algorithms to profile clients and to develop instruments that will make easier, better, and more accurate for insurance companies to foresee the possibility of that client develop, for example, cardiac dysfunction or other condition that would be penalizing for an insurance company, for example, for a healthcare policy. Again, is this acceptable? Is this a technological innovation that we should agree with as a society? How many people with health condition that maybe not even know that with cardiac dysfunction will remain without an healthcare insurance with this kind of system, with the diffusion of this kind of algorithms? A last example that we can mention regards a credit scoring system. And a credit scoring system is something that is using lending money by banks and by financial entities. And it tries to calculate the possibility that you will return the money that are lent to you or that you want. And usually inhabitants of poor neighborhoods or members of minority groups happen to not return the money, and so have so the algorithm give them a low credit scoring system. So we end up with a system that in the particular case, and there are tons of examples that you can look at also in the article I linked there, that in the particular case were actually quite rich and that happen to be members of minority groups or inhabitants of, in general, poor neighborhoods that found impossible to have a loan, even if they almost surely would have returned the money back, just because the algorithm gave them a low credit score, and because no human normally revise this kind of algorithmic decision. By the way, I think we had enough example, and if you are interested in this kind of topics, in this kind of algorithmic discrimination stuff, I advise you this book is called Weapons of Mass Destruction. Maybe it's a bit catastrophic as a perspective, but still very interesting and full of example of this kind of facts. It's written by Kathy O'Neill, that is former researchers in data science with a math or IT background. And I strongly advise you this book. Okay, keep moving on. This new form of market, these new techniques don't limit themselves to profiling customers and targeting advertising products and prices. In fact, there are some examples, not that extended, but they still exist, of attempts to modify human behavior. Like the reasoning is that if we can foresee people behavior in the online environment, we can also try to foresee people behaviors in the real environment, let's say offline space, and so also try to influence it or modify it. I would like to remember you that in the quotation of 2013 of Verdi, with which we opened the presentation, the economist of Google spoke also about continuous experiment with personal data. One example that is usually mentioned of this attempt to modify human behavior is the famous game Pokemon Go that had a strong success in 2016 when it came to the market. I don't know if you played it. I personally did. And maybe you remember the game. It consisted in okay, there were like these fake Pokemon, not real one, obviously, disseminated around the city, around the world, and catchers had to go there and catch them with their mobile phone and slowly collect all of them. And the thing that not many people know is that the company that developed the game, while developing the game, signed also a lot of contracts, of commercial contracts with many big private companies. McDonald's was one of them. And the object of the contracts was simply to disseminate Pokemon or inside the shops of those companies or in front of the shops. And the idea was that these Pokemon, usually the rarest one, I put the Magikarp, that was the rarest one at all, for what I know, and I never found it. And in the shop, the reasoning was that people would have go there to catch the Pokemon and would have to spend their money there. And this actually happened. This actually happened a lot, especially with McDonald's, that had, if you think of it, not in all the country, but in Italy, for example, it is so. Usually those shops are out of the city, not in the center. So people usually had to walk a lot to catch those Pokemon. McDonald's was full of Pokemon. And after a long walk, they were hungry, and so decided to eat there. Other experiment that I usually mention may be a bit more controversial and not strictly related to economics and market, but very interesting, is Facebook I voted experiment in 2010 that was carried out during the US American Congress election, not the presidential one. And to, I think, 600,000 people was showed a fake I voted button that simulated their Facebook friends had gone to vote in almost all of them, and trying to positive conditioning people that were exposed to this I voted, trying to convince them to vote. And it's not clear which are the numbers, because it's also very difficult to have it precisely, but it's estimated that among the 2% and the 5% of people that had the exposure, that were exposed to this fake I voted button, at the end decided to vote, and otherwise would haven't voted. We are speaking about, for example, people that had never voted in their life. And well, about these attempts, these experiments to modify human behavior, a bit controversial. I think there's an important thing to say. That is, they are not perfect. Like these things are not so effective because not many of us probably leave themselves to be convinced to do some important thing like voting just from a button on Facebook. But still, in the large number, in the large scale, in the long term, let's say also, they are effective. I mean, the 2 or 5% of an election can actually change the result of that election in many countries and in many contexts. The same is about McDonald's. If you increase, or other private company, if you increase the client of the 5%, we are thinking about billions of revenues. So there is actually an interest to carry on with this experiment because they are actually useful from a certain perspective. And maybe this should worry us, maybe not. I leave open the question. And yeah, that's the question actually. At the end of this, going towards the end of this brief presentation of the first part of this presentation about this new form of market targeting and this kind of economic revolution related to AI and big data. The question is this desirable? Are these innovation in the economy, in the market system beneficial? Do we think they have a good impact in our life as individuals and in society as well? I try to collect the main negative and positive opinions that we can find in the debate. And after that, I would like, if you want to share it, I would like to hear your opinion also as engineers and IT people. On the negative side, on the side of people that oppose this innovation, there are who says that this is an unprecedented accumulation of power and of personal data on private hands. That's actually very dangerous because these private powers could go simply out of control. And also that is immoral. The richness concentration in the hand of those companies that derive from that data. That we don't have a law strong enough. Maybe we don't have a law at all for this kind of phenomenon. And that this situation is will probably only worsen because data collection is keep improving. IoT will enlarge further the amount of data collectible with the diffusion of sensors in the whole world, and that data owners will become day by day more powerful. And from the economical point of view, there will no hope of surviving of small and medium enterprises, and the future of the market will be dominated by big platforms. There's also, let's say, a very negative opinion, maybe a catastrophic one, that also the power of modifying human behavior will improve with data analytics, with data collection, with the tuning of profiling, and that this will affect also the same concept of freedom, desire, and choice, and that we will be guided only by algorithms that will, without we realize it, will, let's say, strongly advise us what to desire, where to go, what to buy, and what to want. This is an opinion of an author, a very successful one in this period, is Shoshana Zuboff, in this book, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism of the last year. That is an essay that is has been widely read in the last 2 years. It's just an opinion, and this is sure an interesting book, a challenging book, and an inspiring one. We don't have necessarily to agree with this dystopian perspective, but still, I found it interesting to report it to you. On the other side, there are also people that consider this market evolution with its shadows and lights globally a positive innovation. One typical argument is let's call it nothing to hide arguments in privacy and data protection, that many people think and say, like, I'm not that interesting. Why should I care about platforms collecting my data? I have nothing to hide. Maybe this is not a point, as data platform don't actually want to know about you, but just want your data to feed the algorithm. But it can still be an argument. We have to say that ads, maps, and all the targeted products, or the products that derive from also from targeting from the usage of data by platforms, are useful and are unprecedented. They have changed our life. There are people that say that there is no real risk in data concentration, because data concentration is happening mostly on private hands, on private companies, and that elaborate data for profit, for advertisement, for sell products, and not for surveillance or repression-related goals. If we think on it, it's partially true, undeniable. I mean, Google make a lot of maybe debatable things with data, but still it doesn't have an army or a police body that can come to your house and ask about things that have discovered with your data. And this could happen with a concentration of data in public hands, maybe not in a democratic system. There are people that simply say that is a free market phenomenon, and for a more efficient market will advantage also customers. This is also political. Market is not a value for everybody, but for some people it is. And this can be a strong argument for those people. There are people that trust data protection law, antitrust law, and consumer laws, saying that they are effective protection of individual rights in proportion to the risks that maybe they don't consider so high, also because they believe that data concentration in private hands is not so dangerous. And at the end, there's the, let's say, classical unavoidability argument. You can't stop technology. This is important, undeniable. Maybe we don't have to accept all the negative effects of technology. Maybe as a jurist, I have to say it, maybe also law can play a role. Maybe can help us to take only the good effects and not the bad effects, or at least to optimize the balancing. But still, I think this is the general points that people with a positive opinion of this phenomenon usually mention. To give a bit of substance on what we are saying, like let's think about two great innovation made possible not strictly by targeting and advertising, but still by the concentration of data in big platforms and tech players' hands. For example, Apple Watch that measure that usually monitor our life condition, let's say our values, or in our blood and cardiac situation, that saved quite a lot of lives. We in this article are mentioned 7 lives, but maybe they are more. Simply detecting cardiac dysfunction that had never been detected in the life of the people that bought the clock, the smartwatch. Or the recent Meet AI COVID-19 detector that is able, and with an algorithm developed with machine learning, to detect the COVID-19 in people just listening to a recording of their coughing. And so if somebody wants to give a contribute to intervene and give us an opinion, do you think is this kind of new market, this kind of innovation is a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, can I say something?
Yeah. If you want.
We are
Sure.
here. It was a difficult question, of course, so we couldn't respond right in a second. But of course, there are some things that only big tech companies can do. Like in the case for COVID-19, it is not just a matter of software, but also a matter of have the possession of that big data. So small companies and small also nations don't have access to great portions of data, and either have the possession of algorithms that can manage so large data, and so cannot produce so much good results as a great company can do. So I think this is something we could consider.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is actually the point. I mean, that there are a lot of things that only data concentration in, at least in this moment, in these private hands, make possible. And maybe a lot of these things are so pervasive in our life that we don't even consider it anymore. And I think, I give you my personal opinion, the problem is how we can just take the good of this story, of this new form of market. Because there are also a lot of bad things made possible only by this data concentration in private hands. And I don't have the answer. I don't have the question, and I only have the question and the opinion. But thank you for the contribution. I think you had the point. Somebody else?
There's a comment in the chat. It's very
Okay.
short.
Can you
John
read it?
Mueller. Yeah, bad at rather having it controlled. So he is on the cons side of. I don't know if the student want to develop more. Or if...
I can I add something?
Yeah.
It is more of an open point, an open question, and this is it is the fact that we can't see. We have to see these big companies as international beings, as international organizations, and so can we, as consumers, do some action to make these companies use their power for the good, as we did in the past towards the state. So we, as citizens, pushed ourselves against the state to change it for the better. And could we do this? Is there a legal way to do something like this towards the companies, so make them behave like an international state, because they have, in fact, the power of nations. That was of nations before, but is no more of nations.
Well, yes, let's say there's no a real legal way in this moment, but it's the legal challenge maybe of the century. And to limit the increasing private power that maybe is not so private anymore of these companies. And there are some steps that has also already been taken in this part of the world, in my opinion. GDPR is one of them, in my opinion. Like platforms are not indifferent to the new European privacy law. Let's think that Facebook have moved the legal basis of all the use of all the companies that rule on users not European. Before GDPR, all Facebook was based in Ireland, and after the entry into force of GDPR, all the let's say disseminated part of Facebook in the whole world that's not Europe changed their legal place to countries out of Europe, and move from Ireland just to avoid the jurisdiction of GDPR, nowadays Facebook respects GDPR only on its European users because it's obliged by, it can avoid that normal GDPR. So this like two coins factor, because from the good side, we can see that yeah, there are some legal instruments that actually have an impact on these companies and make also them act to try to avoid them, because they are so so hard for them also to respect, and they do not want to respect them. On the other side, we had the bad fact that yes, they avoid it quite simply, like they just move the legal the legal place where they act, and they escape the European jurisdiction for 3/4 of the users. But still, yeah, it's also an international problem. That's true. Thank you.
Thank you for the answer.
Can I add something to the same question or answer?
Yeah, sure.
I think it's a big market. We cannot you can say like limit them. So we can do one thing, like we can provide some alternative. In like instead of Google, we can provide some other platform. Like I'll quote China. If you know China, the WhatsApp, Facebook, Google, I think it's banned over there. You cannot use. Only they have their own software. So same thing WeChat, I think. So
WeChat,
you
yes.
can use, yes, you can use that. So probably that's the good thing. Like, okay, you cannot be secure in this century because your foot stamp is noticed, your place is noticeable, every single thing what you are doing, they keep a track on you. So I think better to have a data with all over the world. They can sell with any other country, they can misuse their data. So let's your country, only one country or only one person can use your data. That will be much more efficient way for the time being. If you compare to these other companies, like some of part of your data is in Israel, some in the US, some in the other area, so your data is distributed. So I think better is to be in one place, give your data, your information to your country, and then later deal with your country how you do. So I think that will be the option, alternate, we can say.
Yeah, that I mean, in theory, I could agree, but in practice, as I think about China, I see a authoritarian regime that accumulate a lot of power with that data control. So it became a thing, a matter of trusting the state. That maybe is always delicate. Let's say trusting the state, and yes, a part of data concentration in one place that can be a solution for territoriality issues, maybe. I would also consider like data deconcentration. Like there are increasing technologies that permit to avoid data accumulation. Like there are now I don't have a strong IT background, so you probably can also help me on this. But what I know, there are increasing attempts to delocate in various nodes in various points of a network, like great clouds accumulation, just to avoid the risk of data concentration in a few private hands. Also, blockchain is a technology based on delocalization, even if it's totally other things. So also, this can be a solution, just avoiding data concentration with technological instruments and not legal instruments.
I don't know, Luca, if you are able to read the chat, because there's a comment, quite a long comment. So if you want to stop sharing.
Yeah, I stop sharing. Also because we go take a break. So.
Yeah, then we can take a break after.
I give you an anticipation here. Okay, now here we are. Already having it controlled, I think that the regulation should protect the citizens from the possible abuses of all this personal data. Not an outright ban, but a regulation that can protect both the citizens and the freedom of the companies. fun and learning and protecting the citizens more if a balance can be reached. Okay, Mr. Huller. If you want to intervene also with your voice, feel free. By the way, I agree in general terms with you when you say that regulation should protect the citizens from abuses of all personal data, but I mean, the point is why doing this? So yeah, you don't, and we are jurists and we don't neither. So, but still, this is the challenge of the century. I'd like you to bring this concept from this seminar, if it's possible, that this is one of the legal challenge of the century. And maybe also IT people and engineer will give a great contribution to the solution. Hope to find it. Are there other comments? Okay,
If
I say
not,
no. So if Professor Penasa agree, we
have
can
a
take
break.
A break.
Yeah, we'll meet again when 10 minutes. Let's
10 minutes, 12 minutes, 10 minutes. I see.
No, 10 minutes.
10, okay.
Okay.
So,
depending on what time do you need to end your
presentation? No, we should finish on time.
Okay, so we will see again at 48, no? 17:48. Okay. 10 minutes. Okay. Thank you. Recording.
Okay. I share the screen again. Everything okay? Okay. Okay, so let's now speak about a connected but different topic that derives from a simple fact that manipulative techniques that are born in marketing and that shape the new economic systems that we spoke in the first part can actually be used also in the political space. Targeting can use also in the political debate. And as we will see, these could have the potential to shape a new political system as it happened in the economy, and also maybe a new form of state. In fact, profiling can be applied also to political opinions. That can be inferred with data analytics by the personal information that people disclose on internet. A great improvement of this technique in the political sphere derived from Internet 2.0 and especially by social media, because in social media, let's say almost no user resisted to the temptation to disclose his personal opinions, his personal or her personal opinions or beliefs, at least a couple of times. And so profiling works in politics actually quite well, maybe better than in the marketing area. And so it's possible, it's easy to manipulate the content of to which a user is exposed on the basis of its opinion, and with the attempt to modify or to polarize, to modify the behavior, the electoral behavior of that user, or to radicalize the user in his or her political opinion, or to, in general, polarize society. In this scenario, play a role also fake news, bot and trolls, and in general, all that content that is not actually genuine, that is present in the social media in, let's say, in the last 5 years. And that has, by the way, the function of manipulating political opinion. And connecting to the topics that we have seen in the first part, it's interesting to note that, let's say, ads are indifferent to content. So for some years, platform have put ads also in, let's say, special content, let's say controversial content like racist video or fake news or conspiracy theories videos. And this till the 2017, when there was a big case, like a scandalous case, controversial between YouTube and Walmart. Walmart is a famous supermarket chain, because Walmart found out that its ads were targeted to be put mostly on conspiracy theory videos and racist videos. We don't know why YouTube thought that Walmart clients were those kind of people. But in general terms, from that moment, from that controversy between YouTube and Walmart, this happens way less. Usually, search engine and social media don't put ads on controversial content. As is quite understandable and obvious, these strategies to manipulate electoral opinions and to target social media users and platform users on the basis of their political opinions have the aim of manipulate elections. And we can see some examples of where this happened, or at least it was tried. Also with illegal means is worldwide known, the scandal of Cambridge Analytica, the consulting companies that gave consulence to many political parties around the world to try to modify the electoral behavior of citizens of different countries. Also with a thief of personal data. It has to be said, not all of Cambridge Analytica said was legal but controversial. It was surely controversial and also illegal. By the way, one example that maybe not everybody knows is, but is one of the, let's say, best examples, because they, like, electoral manipulation through social media and also out of social media had a great impact. Was the 2010 election in the islands of Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago is a natural paradise, as you can see in the pictures. And they are two Caribbean islands that they are actually an independent state. And in Trinidad, there are two main ethnic communities in the islands that have always compete for the power. And now that the state is a democracy, they have two main political powers, one close to one ethnic community, the other to the other one. And in 2010, Cambridge Analytica was contacted by one of those two parties and developed a campaign. And we will see a video. It's from a Netflix documentary, The Great Hack. So maybe some of you or many of you have seen it, but it's actually part of Cambridge Analytica advertising that the company used to show in the world when it tried to sell its services. So they told me that this won't work, so I stopped sharing because I have to. Bene. Do you still see my screen? Are we in YouTube now?
We are seeing your presentation.
The presentation, or are we in YouTube?
No, the presentation. You have to select.
Okay, I have to close the sharing and okay. So okay, now you see me, I suppose. Okay, I will share the screen again here. Here we are, right? Okay.
Yes, yes, we can see it.
Perfect. Audio okay?
No audio.
No.
as we don't have audio, I stopped earlier because we have understood what happened. And I come back to show the presentation. Okay, yes. Okay, we had what happened. The campaign on social media convinced the great part of the youngest members of the two communities not to vote. They made them actually the main character, the protagonist of a political movement of abstention. So that was also the weird fact, because the community that was at the center of the campaign was actually penalized by the campaign, and the community that was paying for that was the other one that nobody never saw during the development of this Do So movement. But by the way, the Indian part of Trinidad and Tobago and the Indian party won the elections. Other elections, these are more famous and more and closer to us, where there was the involvement of Cambridge Analytica, and there was for sure a strong usage of fake news. We can see some of them also in this picture, and of manipulative strategy based on profiling on the users of platform. From a political point of view, was the Brexit referendum of 2016, and you are waiting for it. The 2016 US elections with Donald Trump, and this is a fake news of protesters against Donald Trump that alleged to had been paid $350,000 just to protest against Donald Trump, and that wasn't true. He was a real protester, therefore his conviction. But Donald Trump shared this fake news, and it was shared like 500,000 of times or something like that in social media after the first sharing of Donald Trump. By the way, something has to be highlighted, that maybe the real inventor of political targeting, at least in a great Western countries, was actually the former US President, Barack Obama, that in the 2008 and 2012 elections, used a lot of very fine-tuned targeted ads to reach in a more effective way the electors, and maybe this led him to victory. I'm not saying the same things of involving a company that practice that personal data thief or something like that, but still it has to be understood that this was maybe an invention of that electoral campaign. And I put in the slide some of the media reaction that, as you see, was enthusiastic. And if you remember, we mentioned the enthusiasm for new and great technological innovation as one of the reasons that permit the development of targeting and micro-targeting also in the marketing space. So maybe we have seen the same phenomenon also in the political space. The first time that these techniques were used, they actually seemed a genuine and a new, smart form of political propaganda. What it could be argued that they are. I also like to listen to your opinion on this later if you want, but still just to give a bit of history of content from the end of contest. On fake news, hate speech, and racist content, and those kind of things that are shared in social media to manipulate electoral election, I think is interesting, also not only for this seminar, but also in general for people that work in IT. Know at least in the general terms, what is the law on these things, the law on platform content. And it's quite complex, but there is because we have to remember that in many systems, not in all the legal systems, and not in the same way among different systems, at least a part of this content, usually not fake news, at least not all the fake news, but usually hate speech and racist content are illegal. They aren't just controversial, but they are also forbidden by law. And so I suppose that there is the question, who is responsible, who is the liable entity for the sharing of this content? So there are almost the same rule, at least at level of main principles, between UK, US, and European Union. And the main idea is the so-called intermediary liability exemption. They say that platforms, as considered like just intermediary, and so are not responsible for the content that users, any kind of users, like normal people or big economic or NGOs or the realities that put content on a social media or on a platform, are not responsible for the meaning of that content, because they are just intermediaries. So they just permit to people to share ideas, concept, interest, things with other people. This, under the European law, is ruled by a directive of 2000, the so-called e-commerce directive, that has been translated in national laws by all European states, but this doesn't matter. And social media, social search engines, online sale platforms, all these instruments that in a broad sense permit to pattern internet things, let's say, in very simple terms, are considered in the legal term hosting. I know it's not exactly what hosting means in the IT sector, but this is the legal definition of hosting. And as you can see, you can read by yourself. Article 14 of this directive, in general terms, exclude responsibility for the content that is shared by users in the platform. Apart of two cases, that is when the content is legal and the provider, the hoster, the platform happen to know it, but just for casualty or because somebody flagged it. And when they know this content, they don't act to remove it just straight after. These are the only occasions where a platform is liable for the content the users put in it. Otherwise, they are never. In theory, in a theoretical way, they are never liable. And a lot of this thing to understand, lot of the illegal content that is put on platform is actually removed by platform, even if they wouldn't be liable for ethical and commercial interest with the so-called content moderation that actually use also a lot of AI, but is another topic. But what I would like to make clear is that there's no legal obligation in theory for it. Yeah, sure.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
So this is the reason why YouTube and Facebook are so hard against copyright claims and copyrighted content, because if someone puts online some copyrighted content claiming it is it is a problem, it is illegal. So is this the reason why it is they are very hard on?
And they are very hard also because I'm a bit simplifying, and there is a lot of distinction in the European Court of Justice jurisprudence of what is simple hosting and what make possible make liable the platform, because they index the content, they act on the content in a way that make presume that they have to know the content, that the meaning of the content, so the violation of copyright. But in general terms, yes, they act on content moderation so strict for commercial way, for commercial reasons, for ethical reasons, and also on copyright. Because in general terms, if they don't know the content, the meaning of the content, they are not liable. There are a lot of distinctions that if you want, you can write me an email, we can check it together. And but this is in very general term, there's no responsibility. And the following article of the directive just reinforce this provision, this exemption of responsibility, saying that responsibility is only an exception at the end of the discourse. This is the point.
Okay.
Okay. Here you can see the section 230.1 of the US Communication Act, and that announces the same rule of liability exemption, specifying that a platform, a hosting provider, cannot be treated as the publisher or the speaker of an illegal content, of an illegal information, because publishers and speakers are actually responsible also in the criminal way if it is the case. What's the point? This rule, the rule of liability exemption, was conceived to protect free speech and has played a key role in the development of internet. It has the US section 230 has been called the 26 words that created the internet, because it was very important and it permits to develop the market of hosting service in the legal way, in the legal meaning of hosting, without the fear by the platform to be found responsible of some content. And so the exponential growth of the network that we witnessed in the last 20 years was made possible mostly by this rule. And if you are interested in free speech, I brought you two extracts of legal rules, one from the First Amendment of the US Constitution that guarantee freedom of speech, and the other of the European Convention of Human Rights. Maybe if you are interested, you can ask about that or by email or at the end of the lecture. The problem is that internet has changed. Like, we are not in this, if you remember, in the first year of internet, there was also a culture of freedom, of free speech, of we are building a new space of equality, of freedom, of auto-government, of self-government, of democracy. Nowadays it's different. Like, first of all, is way more difficult, and day by day is becoming more difficult to consider what many platforms do with content, simple hosting, even with the legal fiction that we spoke about. Because when the control that many platforms have on content, on advertising, on indexing, on data collection and data analytics, is eroding, let's say, the concept of hosting way more. The environment of internet has changed. The climate, let's say, of internet. There are fake news, hate speech, and aggressive content that are spreading, that are shared by so many people. There are a lot of fake agents and political agents that act just trying to influence the social media environment. And in short, there are strong legal debate around liability exemption. If you remember, even Donald Trump tried with an executive order when a couple of months ago, maybe a bit more, to abolish Section 230, to introduce liability for platforms. After that, Twitter just censored one of his posts. This order had not a long life because some judge just cancel it, but just to show how this concept is discussed also by politics, also by in the highest level of, let's say, the world. What's the point? That platforms want to conserve the liability because want to conserve liability exemption, sorry, because the exemption avoid them a lot of problems. So what are they doing? They are increasingly try to build their systems to solve problems, their system of rules, of internal rule to solve content moderation, and to this, let's say, not to give reason to national states and supranational organization to cancel the liability exemption. On this point, I would like to ask something a bit provocative, like, can we compare Facebook to a state? This person is Max Weber. I don't know if you know him. He's a great sociologist, a German sociologist that lived in the 19th and 20th century. And he gave the, let's say, most widely recognized definition of state, identifying 3 main points in presence of which we can say we have a state. First of all, a people. Secondly, obviously, a territory. And third of all, the monopoly of the use of the legitimate use of physical force that we can translate as government, let's say, and as police, and effectiveness of rules and norms that we want to rule that people, that territory. Okay, so let's think about Facebook. It has 2.7 billion users. Maybe the bigger people in the world in state population terms. It has a digital territory. We could say that the digital space of the social network is a territory. And maybe it has also a government, because it has its internal rule. It has terms of service and the content moderation system and the rules that govern the content moderation system. And as we will see, it's trying also to develop its own way to enforce these rules without need of state authorities, of external authorities. If, let's say it in some terms, he wants the monopoly of the legitimate use of digital force. In fact, I don't know if some of you have heard of it, but in the last 2 years, the Facebook have developed the so-called oversight board that it has been called the Supreme Court of Content Moderation. And that it should be like a, let's say, appellation body. You know, when you go to a tribunal for a problem, for a trial, you have not only one judge then rule on you. You have a first degree judge, a first judge, and if you don't like that decision, let's say, you can usually appellate, not in every country, but in every democratic country, let's say at least, you can usually appellate to a second judge to have a revision of that decision and to challenge the decision of the first judge. This would be the function also of this oversight board that should decide on the on request to people that want to challenge the content moderation decision that affected them. So if you have your content on Facebook censored by content moderation, if they close your account, these kind of things, you can ask to this body to judge on it, to reverse that decision if you are convinced to be in the right side. This body will not rule in all the requests, because Facebook has 2.7 billion users, so there were too many, but will decide which one are worthy of a decision. It's interesting to notice that there is a great human resource on it. Facebook has invested a lot on this project. Like the body is formed by, for example, they are 40 people. You can check on the website who they are. By the way, there are, for example, the former Prime Minister of Denmark, the King of Denmark, the founder of an important ONG like the Digital Rights Foundation, the director of Human Rights Watch. This is a very, very famous and important NGO. Some law professors of law and technology, very quoted. And even a Nobel Peace Prize graduate, Tavalla Carmen. And these people will surely be a, let's say, high-quality court. What I would like to ask you is if such court can be impartial, if our judges are independent. You know, like also in the Italian Constitution, we say that the independence of the judges is a fundamental thing. that judges has to respect and respond only to the law, and don't have to have any interest and any connection with the executive power on the legislative power. And their impartiality is widely protected by law. Or these judges that are obviously paid by Facebook and mostly chosen by Facebook, appointed by hand, probably by Facebook executive board, will they never be independent? Will they never act in the name of the people? In the name of the people is the quotation that usually you find at the beginning of any judicial decision. And because try to think of it, in Italy, in theory, for example, in a normal state, anybody can become a judge. It's very difficult. You have to study law. You have usually to pass a very difficult exam. But anybody of the people can become the one that decides to the people. Here you have an inversion of this system, like there are just some judges appointed by hand by the board of directors of a private company. And these can be, in my opinion, problems of no solution with this project. The second problems that have to be highlighted is the conflict of interest that we already mentioned. It's quite obvious that Facebook do this thing just to avoid real tribunals. Like they are made their tribunals just to conserve the liability exemption that we seen a couple of minutes ago. And at the end, the risk of private censorship that I think is also quite intuitive and obvious. So is Facebook and our platforms the right people to decide on which content can be shared in the platforms? It's not a free speech matter nowadays, because there are like two different opinions on this that differ also on the nature of Facebook and on the platforms. We can see that Facebook is still a private actor, a private company, that when we join the community, we will accept the term of service. And so that's like a contractor, and they have the power in their house to make that contract respected. And so also to censor you, to close your account, and all the things that that contract, that terms of service announce. On the other side, there's the opinion that consider Facebook something too important today, something to a public space that has become too important for the expression of the users and of normal people to be considered a private space. Nowadays, Facebook, in this theory, would have developed public power and so would deserve public regulation. And so it's not acceptable, or would be not acceptable anymore, to have some content moderation system so pervasive that can censor someone in a community that has become so important for the freedom of expression. Again, I leave the question open for you. Let's move to the last thing I wanted to see with you. Let's go fast, also because we already spoke about it actually. It has been mentioned by one of you in during the break. Chinese version of WeChat, what has been called the app of the apps, is the full system with, let's say, all the things we do with apps in our normal life, with that sharing of data with different companies that we mentioned before. And also with a lot of border systems that are, let's say, aimed to collect the greatest amount of data possible. This data collected by the app are shared with the Chinese government. You can find a lot of sources about on it, and it's actually also in the English version of the privacy policy, by the way. There's nothing hidden on this. Just to give you an idea of how pervasive is today this app and in general technology in Chinese society. Here we have two pictures. In one there is a homeless that is begging with a QR code. That is the method that is used to pay with WeChat, to pay in shops, restaurants, and also to beg. And on the right side, There's someone that is paying the fruit in a city market, where in Italy you can pay only by coins, also with the QR code. Maybe should be worry us, maybe not, but is a declaration of the last year of Mark Zuckerberg, that he looks at WeChat with very interest and maybe a bit of envy, and he would like to build a WeChat also for the West. Let's say that in theory, this data collection in the hand of authoritarian state can lead to the perfect dictatorship, let's call it, because it means an unprecedented propaganda machine, because you are exposed only to the content of the platform, and the platform is controlled by the government. The possibility to predict the behavior of citizens and to influence it with the techniques that we have seen in the first part, and the total control that derived by data control and data analytics. There's no possibility of dissent or to hide also personal opinions of not agreeing with the government, as we already seen speaking about political targeting. It's very easy to infer the political opinion of someone through a social media or through an app like this. So there are some people that see that what is happening in China will be in the long term our future. One of these is Harari. Harari is a very important historian, an Israeli historian, very famous for this Sapiens, a brief history of humanity, of humankind, that has an historical perspective and an historical argument to say so. And he says that in practice, in the old dictatorship in the 20th centuries, like the centralization of power was a defect and a limit of those systems, because it was inefficient with the human mediums, the human possibilities to collect, to centralize all the information, because it wasn't possible to process efficiently all of it. Nowadays, with AI technology, in our opinion, it's the opposite way. More centralization of information, the best government you will have, because AI has solved the problem of the monitor and the managing of that amount of information. And it's actually very efficient to have all the information centralized in one place. And so this would be the, let's say, technological and historical reason, in our opinion, of because the authoritarian regimes in the long term will overcome the democratic one in this century. Feel free to think what you want of this opinion. By the way, what I would like to underline is that anyway, massive data collection by the states using private platforms as an instrument or as a partner is not a phenomenon also only of China or of authoritarian regimes, but regards also democratic states. Think of the Snowden revelation that we mentioned, that disclosed that US and UK security agencies use the platform to collect in an illegal way, let's say, a lot of personal data. If you are interested in China and in what is happening in China with WhatsApp, I advise this book of an Italian journalist. It's called Red Mirror. Okay, no. And is of 2019. It's a very interesting essay. So at the end, what can we do to prevent that future if we want to prevent it? I passed some ideas. We have actually already mentioned them. Effective data protection laws can be a way. Improve AI and technology literacy in the population, just to make people understand what could happen. Is surely another way. As we already said, this is the legal challenge of the century, probably, limiting these new powers to protect the rights. And there's also a challenge of constitutionalism that you already saw with Professor Penaza and Casonato, consist first of all in limiting the powers. And if there are more ideas, I finish here, and I thank you for your attention, and I hope not to have bothered you too much. I know we are strict of time, but if there are questions or comments.
Yeah, but now we can spend some extra minutes if there's some
Otherwise, you can reach me
questions and
when you want.
reaction. Someone yesterday or the day before, I don't know, I don't remember exactly, refers to a kind of tech justice. So it seems that Facebook is already thinking about it, and we also discuss about limiting the power. And the last example Luca made about this self-regulation or self-limitation that Facebook is trying to implement, which is also a way to strengthen his credibility before the audience, the society, and is effectively to build up its own judicial system, and it raises a lot of doubts, but also a lot of way to ask ourselves which relationship do it have with the traditional judicial system, which kind of effect, if the effects of the Facebook Supreme Court of the Court for Content Moderation will produce, the decision will produce effect only within the territory and the legal order of Facebook, and especially if you think that probably in order to react and in order to have a decision by a traditional and ordinary courts, you have to wait years. In order, Luca mentioned Article 10 of the European Convention of Human Rights, which is almost constitutional principle and rules protecting the freedom of individual. In order to stand before the European Court and to have a decision from it, you have to wait, I think, not less than 5 or 6 or even more years. So it's also a matter of time, of the effectiveness and the efficiency of the two competing systems. So the time factor is also another relevant topic. I don't know if someone wants to say something. Otherwise, in chat. No.
Yeah, one question.
Okay.
Could you please repeat the title of the book that you mentioned, the last one?
Yeah, sorry, because
we didn't see the very quick.
It's Red Mirror, like mocking the black.
It is in Italian, isn't it?
It's in Italian, yeah. Red Mirror is il nostro futuro si scrive in cima. Something like this. Okay, let's do this. Is this book?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Simone Pieranni, the author.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So, if anybody wants to interact, I think we can stop sharing the presentation. And I really thank Luca Rinaldi for this insightful presentation. We put many other issues on the table, constitutional issues, technological issues on the table for discussing. And I think the next step is to find what will be not easy. I will not a task for this course, obviously, but to find. Now we started about talking about technological experimentations, like having a technological microscope, and then we Luca mentioned also the idea of social experimentation through technology, from predicting human behavior to modifying it. I think that we will have to start thinking about a kind of legal or constitutional experimentation in order to try to find a new solution, new ways to understand the role of law and new ways to produce laws. And I don't know, just a matter of just joking a little bit, I was wondering whether the Zuckerberg court is making use of artificial intelligence system in order to decide a case or not, or if it's only based on humans. Okay, so thank you again, Luca Rinaldi. Thank you, everyone. So we see on Zoom on Tuesday, and we will publish on the Didactic Online also the Luca presentation, and maybe if you want to suggest us some lecture, some reading material, we can share it with the Studi. You already mentioned a lot of books, and if you have some
well, not
other
for the
reading.
exams.
Exactly.
As for personal interest. No.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, and see you on Tuesday. Bye bye.